Detective Alex Baker stared out the window of his office at the Los Angeles skyline, the weight of an impossible decision pressing down on his shoulders like a storm cloud ready to burst. The Luna situation had spiraled out of control. Evidence was thin. There was no forensic link, no confession, no smoking gun. Just suspicions, circumstantial hints, and one woman whose flawless public persona masked what Baker was convinced was a dangerous truth. Luna. Calm. Calculated. Impeccably dressed, socially adored, yet always just a step ahead of the law. And now she was slipping through his fingers. Every lead had dried up. Witnesses clammed up. Records vanished. Her legal team, top-tier and ruthless, was already circling like vultures, daring Baker to make a move so they could pounce. The pressure from the department was building. The DA wanted answers. The media? Blood. And Baker? Baker wanted justice. He believed Luna was responsible for at least one major cover-up involving the Forrester family, possibly more. But belief wasn't enough. Not in court. Not under oath. That's when Will walked in. Will Spencer. Young, ambitious, loyal to a fault. He had a personal stake in all this. His entanglement with Luna was messy, emotional, and potentially explosive. Baker should have benched him, cut him out of the operation entirely. But Will had something Baker didn't. Access. Trust. A way in. And Will was the one who suggested it. A wire. Illegal surveillance. Entrapment, if mishandled. One wrong move and Baker wouldn't just lose the case, he'd lose his badge, his pension, everything. But if it worked? If Luna confessed on tape, if she slipped just once, just enough to tie her to the Forrester drug tampering scandal or the disappearance of Emma Barber, it would change everything. So Baker broke the rules. He didn't file the order. He didn't consult with the legal department. He called it an off-the-books investigation and greenlit the operation. Will would wear the wire. Luna, unaware. The stakes couldn't be higher. Will walked into the Forrester estate like he belonged there. His charm, his insider status, his history with Luna, it all played into the performance. Luna greeted him with her usual polished grace, but beneath the gloss, Will could see the calculation in her eyes. She was suspicious, but not enough to send him away. She let him in. She always did. The conversation started casual. Talk of mutual friends. A few barbs about old times. But Will, guided by Baker's coaching, began to steer the conversation. Mentions of Emma. The night she disappeared. The Forrester lab files. Luna didn't flinch, didn't fall into the trap, until Will pushed harder. You ever wonder if this all catches up to you? Will asked, leaning in, his voice a careful blend of curiosity and accusation. Luna smiled. It won't. Not for me. She poured herself a glass of wine. Her guard was up, but the alcohol helped. She talked. Not directly. Not overtly. But she slipped small admissions, offhand remarks that hinted at knowledge she shouldn't have had. Names, dates, timelines. Back in the surveillance van, Baker listened, heart pounding. This wasn't a confession yet, but it was close. Too close for Luna to deny if they could keep her talking. Will pressed on. You knew what Thomas was doing, didn't you? With the lab results. With hope. You were in on it. Luna looked him dead in the eye. Of course I knew. I'm not blind. You think I'd let that happen under my nose without taking precautions? Baker froze. That was it. She just admitted knowledge of the cover-up. The tampered results that put Hope Logan at risk. The manipulation that nearly cost lives. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Will swallowed hard. He couldn't believe she'd said it. He could feel the sweat on his back, the weight of the device strapped to his chest like a ticking bomb. One more push. What about Emma? He asked softly. Luna's expression changed. Her eyes narrowed. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to, Will. Silence. Then she added, sometimes the truth is more dangerous than the lie. You learn that in this family. Baker exhaled sharply. It was as close as she would ever come to a confession. It wasn't court admissible, not without context, but it was damning. He pulled Will out that night. Said it was too risky. Luna was getting wise. The next step had to be careful, surgical. But Luna had already started to unravel. The next day, she confronted Will at Il Giardino. In public. Loud. Reckless. She accused him of betrayal. She didn't say, wire, but her implication was clear. She was spooked. And that made her dangerous. Baker watched the footage again and again. Her body language. Her tone. She was slipping. Meanwhile, Ridge Forrester got wind of Baker's investigation. He tried to shut it down. Claimed harassment. Threatened legal action. Brooke tried to intervene, but the family's loyalties were fractured. Steffi, always shrewd, kept her distance. But she knew something was off with Luna. She just didn't know how deep it went. Baker doubled down. He brought in Charlie Weber to run surveillance on Luna's known associates. He traced her calls, her meetings. He found something interesting, frequent contact with a private lab in Nevada. Off the books. No billing records. He sent Will to investigate. What they found blew the case wide open. The lab had samples. Retests. Confidential communications between Luna and a technician named DeMarco. And then, a bombshell. The original paternity test for Steffi's child, filed, tampered with, and hidden under Luna's authorization. Baker had it now. Motive. Means. Cover-up. He confronted Luna directly. No backup. Just him, her, and the wire in his pocket this time. I've got the files, he said. The lab. The records. DeMarco's ready to talk. Luna laughed. You think that's enough? You have no chain of custody. No warrant. You're bluffing. No, Baker said, stepping closer. I'm done bluffing. You were the one who pushed DeMarco to alter the results. You've been cleaning up messes for the Forresters for years. But this one cost a life. That's when Luna's mask cracked. She didn't deny it. She didn't confess either. She just said, do you think the Forresters will let you bury me? They'll bury you first. It was a threat. But it was also a mistake. She had tied herself to them, to the lab, to the cover-up. Enough for Baker to move. He made the arrest that night. The fallout was nuclear. The media devoured it. Forrester's scandal deepens. Luna arrested in cover-up probe. The DA was furious at Baker for acting without authorization, but once they heard the tapes, they backed him. Fairly. Luna's legal team tried to get everything thrown out on technicalities, but the public pressure was too much. A grand jury convened within a week. Will disappeared. Too much heat. Too much guilt. He left a note on Baker's desk. I did what you asked. But she didn't deserve this. Not all of it. Baker kept the note. Kept the tapes. Kept the job for now. But something gnawed at him. Luna hadn't denied it. But she hadn't admitted everything either. And Will was right. She didn't work alone. Someone else was still pulling strings. Someone higher up. Someone still watching. And the storm wasn't over. It had only just begun. Electra was never meant to be a main player in the Forrester drama. At first glance, she was simply a beautiful distraction, the kind of woman Will Spencer used to keep tongues wagging and eyes off his real motives. To the public, she was his arm candy. To the press, she was a temporary fascination. But Electra was more than the glittering surface. She was calculating, observant, and, for better or worse, proud. The moment Will decided to publicly humiliate her, casting her aside to pursue Luna Nozawa with sudden, performative sincerity. He did more than just hurt her pride. He triggered a fuse inside her that would blow open a web of secrets, schemes, and betrayals no one was prepared to confront. At first, Electra kept her rage under wraps. She had played the game long enough to know that power didn't come from making noise, it came from knowing exactly when to strike. But Will's move was deliberate. He made a show of it, stepping away from Electra at a high-profile gala, eyes locked on Luna as though Electra were already a distant memory. That alone would have been enough to embarrass her, but it was what followed that pushed her to the edge. Will framed Luna as his true inspiration, painting their bond as authentic, spiritual even, while dismissing Electra as a flirtation gone stale. The whispers spread like wildfire. Electra had been dumped, publicly, harshly, and apparently for someone purer, more real. Forrester pride runs deep. Electra may not have been born into the family legacy, but she learned quickly what it meant to carry that name. Expectation, pressure, and above all, the need to never, ever be the one left looking foolish. So when Will blindsided her, she didn't spiral. She strategized. She dug into her mental archive of the last few months, retracing conversations, interactions, moments she'd overlooked while too focused on playing the part Will wanted from her. And that's when it hit her. She had heard things, little details Will thought she'd ignored. Late-night phone calls, cryptic texts, sudden disappearances. She hadn't understood them at the time, but now, in context, they painted a different picture. Will's pursuit of Luna wasn't just romantic. It was tactical. And it wasn't just about Luna. It was about access, proximity, and manipulation. And Electra realized something else, something much bigger. This wasn't just a love triangle. This was a setup. Will had been a pawn, a volunteer perhaps, but a pawn nonetheless. And the game? Orchestrated by someone with far more to lose. That someone was Steffi. Steffi Forrester, ever the strategist, ever the protector of her brand, her image, and her family's power, had been operating behind the scenes. Will's involvement with Luna wasn't spontaneous. It was staged. Luna had been getting too close to truths that Steffi and Finn needed buried, and Will, charming, reckless, and entirely disposable, had been tasked with drawing her in, distracting her, maybe even discrediting her if necessary. The goal was never love. It was containment. Electra, in her bitterness, stumbled on this truth not through investigation, but through instinct and memory. She knew Will too well. She remembered a name he once whispered in his sleep, Finn. She recalled the documents he once hid when she walked into the room too quietly. At the time, she hadn't cared. Now she cared a great deal. Armed with these fragments, Electra didn't waste time. She confronted Will not directly, not immediately, but through carefully timed social media posts, veiled comments in interviews, and calculated leaks. At first, Will laughed it off. But the tone shifted when Electra posted an image of a single message, blurred enough to avoid legal retaliation, clear enough to terrify those who knew. Keep her busy. She's asking too many questions. The message, sent from a burner number to Will's private phone, was enough to raise suspicion. Luna saw it. And so did Finn. What came next was chaos. Finn confronted Steffi, and though she denied the message's authenticity, cracks began to form in her usually unshakable composure. Finn wasn't stupid. He'd seen Steffi lie before. He knew when she was hiding something. The tension between them grew, infecting their marriage like a slow poison. Meanwhile, Luna began to question her entire relationship with Will. Was any of it real? Had she truly fallen for someone who was using her as a tool in a larger conspiracy? She felt betrayed, exposed, and vulnerable, but worst of all, she felt naive. and she hated herself for it. Electra watched the fallout unfold from a distance, not with glee, but with the cold satisfaction of someone reclaiming their dignity. But her victory was short-lived, because in unearthing the conspiracy, she had also implicated herself. Will, in a desperate attempt to regain control, threatened to expose her role in several confidential leaks, ones that could damage not just Forrester Creations, but other business ties Electra had cultivated. She realized she wasn't untouchable. She had power, yes, but now she was also a liability. And Steffi? She wasn't the kind of woman to let a loose end dangle. Suddenly, Electra found herself being followed. Paparazzi, sure, but more than that. Men she didn't recognize. Cars idling too long outside her apartment. Anonymous packages. Threatening letters. She couldn't prove it was Steffi. She couldn't even prove it wasn't Will. But she knew one thing. She was in over her head. Finn, meanwhile, was spiraling. The revelation that his wife had orchestrated a deception, one that involved his own cousin Luna and possibly endangered their mental well-being, shook him. He began to confide in Luna more, drawn to her vulnerability and honesty. Steffi noticed. Her jealousy, her fear of losing control, began to override her reason. She started making mistakes, pushing too hard at board meetings, lashing out at Thomas, accusing Hope of sabotage with no proof. The walls were closing in. Will tried to pivot. He begged Electra to stay quiet, offering her money, access, connections. She refused. Not because she was noble, but because she had already made a new play. She'd started talking to Ridge. And Ridge, ever the protector of the Forrester name, saw in Electra not a liability but a weapon. If he could use her to bring Steffi back in line, to neutralize whatever danger she posed to the brand, he would. So he backed her quietly at first, then more overtly. He helped her land a campaign with the new Forrester menswear line, reintroducing her as not just a model but a muse. The message was clear. Electra was back, and she was on the family's payroll. Steffi saw the move for what it was, an open threat. She confronted Rich, who refused to back down. She turned to Thomas, but he refused to take sides. She turned to Taylor, but even her mother couldn't justify the web of lies she'd woven. Steffi was isolated. And when the press finally got wind of the Will-Luna-Steffi triangle, public opinion turned sharply. Electra's earlier posts went viral. The narrative shifted. Luna the innocent, Will the manipulator, Steffi the puppet master. As the scandal peaked, Finn made his choice. He walked out. Not a Luna, not yet, but away from Steffi. He needed space, clarity, and above all, honesty, something he no longer believed Steffi could offer. In the final turn, Electra held a press conference. She didn't name names. She didn't spill everything, but she said enough that she had been misled, that certain powerful people had used her, that the fashion world needed transparency, accountability, and integrity. It was a power move and a dangerous one. She'd drawn a line in the sand. What happens next isn't clear. But one thing is, Electra is no longer the footnote in someone else's story. She's writing her own chapter, and it starts with fire.